I'm just going to read from the first few pages of this new novel. So that means I don't have to say anything about it. I'm a very efficient person. It is known where we come from, but no one much cares about things like that anymore. We think, why bother? Except for a lucky few, everyone is from someplace, but that someplace, it turns out, is gone. You can search it. You can find pics or vids that show what the place last looked like. In our case, a gravel-colored town of stoop-shouldered buildings on a riverbank in China, shorn hills in the distance, rooftops a mess of wires and junk. The river tees still, a swath of black. And blunting it all is a haze that you can almost smell, a smell you think you don't want to breathe in. So what does it matter if the town was razed one day after our people were trucked out? What difference does it make that there's almost nothing there now? It was on the other side of the world, which might as well be a light year away. Though probably it was mourned when it was thriving. People are funny that way. Even the most miserable kind of circumstance can inspire a genuine throb of nostalgia. The blood was pumping, yes? Weren't we alive? You can bet that where we live now was mourned too in its time. And though it may be surprising to consider, someday this community might be remembered as an excellent place, even by those of us who recognize its shortcomings. But we don't wish to dwell on the unhappier details. Most would agree that any rational person would leap at the chance of living here in Bmore, given what it's like out there beyond the walls, in the open counties. And even those relative few who've secured a spot in the charter villages might find certain aspects of life here enviable, though they would definitely never say so. We, on the other hand, will offer this. You can rely on the time here, the tread of the hours. If you think about it, there's little else that's more important than having a schedule, and better yet, counting on that schedule. It helps one to sleep more soundly, to work steadily through one shift, maybe even to digest the hearty meals, and finally to enjoy all the free time available to us, right up to the last minutes of the evening. Then, if the stars are out, and they do seem to be out most every night now, we can sit together in our backyards and wave a hand to neighbors over the fences and view our favorite programs while sitting in the open air and authentically believe that this stretch of sky sings its chorus of light for us alone. Who would tell us we were wrong? Let them come forward. Let them try to shake our walls. Our footings are dug deep. And if they like, they can even bring up the tale of Fan, the young woman whose cause has been taken up by a startling number of us. She's now gone from here, and whether she's enduring or suffering is a matter for her household, whatever their disposition. They are gone too, transferred to another facility in the far west, the best scenario for them after the strife she caused. We can talk about her openly because hers is no grand tragedy, no apocalypse of the soul or of our times. Yes, there are those who would like to believe otherwise, that each and every being in the realm is a microcosm of the realm, that we are heartened and chastened and diminished and elevated by a singular reflection. This is a fetching idea, metaphorically and otherwise, most often enlisted for promoting the greater good. But more and more, we can see that the question is not whether we are individuals. We can't help but be. This has been proved case by case. We are not drones or robots and never will be. The question then is whether being an individual makes a difference anymore, that it can matter at all, and if not, whether we in fact care. Did Fan care about such things? We can't be certain. We know much about her daily life, but that still leaves a great deal to be determined. She was perhaps brighter than most, certainly less talkative, but otherwise, in terms of character, not terribly distinctive. Nor would anyone have thought she could do the things she did. Such a lamentable action. She did stand out physically, and not because she was beautiful. She was pleasing enough to look at. She was tiny was the thing, just 150 centimeters, or not quite 5 feet tall, and slim besides, which made her the perfect size for her job in the tanks. At 16, she had the stature of a girl of 11 or 12, and thereby, when first encountered, she could appear to possess a special perspective that one might automatically call wisdom, but is perhaps more a kind of timelessness of view, the capacity, as a child might have, to see things and people and events without the muddle of the present and all it contains. Perhaps Fan truly had that kind of clarity, and not just a semblance of it. But if we may, let us picture her before the trouble, just as she was, clad in black neoprene, only the pale gleam of her bare feet and hands and face to indicate her humanity. Once she pulled on gloves and flippers and her eye mask, she looked like a creature of prey, a sleek, dark seabird knifing into the waters. Of course, that's not what she did in the tanks, where her job was to husband and nurture the valuable fish that allow our community to do so well in this mostly difficult world. She was one of the best in her function as a diver, easily able to hold her breath for 2 minutes or more while she scrubbed and vacuumed and replaced tubing and filters and patched whatever tears had formed in the linings, a half-weight vest to hold her beneath the surface. Even that was almost too heavy for her, and she would have to bend her knees while at the bottom of the 2-meter deep water and propel herself upward to breathe before descending again, her various tools attached to her work belt. Once submerged, a diver is not easily seen. Given all the fish in the water, naturally as many healthy fish are raised as possible, she is a mere shadow among them, trained to do her tasks quickly and unobtrusively. That is why she uses no special breathing apparatus aside from a snorkel, compressed gases causing too much of a disturbance. Fearful fish are not happy fish. The diver is not one of them, but is part of the waterscape from the time they are hatchlings, and they see her customary form and the repeated cadence of her movements and the gentle motor of her flippered feet that must come to them like a motherly lullaby, a dream song of refuge, right up to the moment of harvest. The diver is there at harvest, of course, and sees to it that the very last of them finds its way into the chute. And it is only then, for the span of the few hours while the tank is being cleaned and filtered before the next generation of hatchlings is released, that the water is clear of activity, that the diver is alone. How somber a period that must be. The constant light from the grow bulbs filtering through the canopy of vegetables and herbs and ornamental flowers suspended above the tanks throws blue-green glints about the facility walls, this cool Amazonian hue that suggests a fecundity primordial and unceasing. The diver inspects each aquarium, which is roughly the dimension of a badminton court, and by the end she is exhausted not by the work or holding her breath, but instead from the strange exertion of pushing against the emptiness. For she is accustomed to the buoying lift of their numbers, how sometimes the fish seem to gird her and bear her along the tank walls like a living scaffold, or perhaps lead her to one of their dead by swarming about its upended corpse, or even playfully school themselves into just her shape and become her mirror in the water. At the pellet drop, they are simply fish again and thrash upward, mouths agape, the vibrato of the water chattering and electric, as if bees were madly attempting to pass through her suit. And wouldn't it be truth enough to speak of those bristling hundreds as not only being cared for by the diver, but as serving to shepherd her too through the march of days? For who is she, given the many hours she and all the other members of her household spend at their jobs, and how generally sparse their conversation is during downtime or when they're having their morning or evening meal while watching a vid or game? All around Be More, it's much the same, which is happy enough. But maybe it's the laboring that gives you shape. Might the most fulfilling times be those spent solo at your tasks, literally immersed or not, when you are able to uncover the smallest surprises and unlikely details of some process or operation that in turn exposes your proclivities and prejudices both. And whether or not there is anything to be done about it, you begin to learn what you value most. For Fan, more than the other divers, took to the tanks with a quiet abandon, rarely climbing out at the ending hour to peel herself for the suiting in the changing room with the others. She would appear just as they were leaving for home, or if she didn't and they grew concerned, someone would go to her tanks and check that she was still working. For divers have perished from time to time, as they can believe too well they are one of the throng. But Fan would be there, simply swimming about, scrubbing or patching, and the other diver would splash the water and wait until Fan surfaced with a thumbs up. She once told us that she almost preferred being in the tanks than out in the air of Bmore, that she liked the feeling of having to hold her breath and go against her nature, which made her more aware of herself as this mere lone body. In the hour or so after the shift, with no more tasks to be done, she would pull her knees to her chest and drift to the bottom and stay there in that crouch until her lungs screamed for forgiveness. She wasn't inviting oblivion or even testing herself, but rather summoning a different kind of force that would transform not her, but the composition of the realm, make it so the water could not harm her. And we would say, "Please, Fan, please, you cannot truly believe this." And she would almost smile and mostly nod, but the impression you were left with was that she did, in fact, believe in such a possibility. And if that is an indication of her instability, everything else that happened makes sense and no more needs to be accounted for. But let's suppose another way of considering her, which was that she had a special conviction of imagination. Few of us do, to be honest. We wish, and often with fury, but never very deeply. For if we did, we'd see how the world can sometimes split open in just the way we hope. That it and we, in fact, are unbounded, free. Thanks.